the Battle of Quatre Bras, between Wellington's Anglo-allied army and the left wing of the Armée du Nord under Marshal Michel Ney, was fought near the strategic crossroads of Quatre Bras on June 16, 1815, 2 days before the Battle of Waterloo. Prelude. The crossroads of Quatre Bras was of strategic importance because the side which controlled it could move southeastward along the Nivelles-Namur road towards the French and Prussian armies at the Battle of Ligny. If Wellington's Anglo-allied army could combine with the Prussians, the combined force would be larger than Napoleon's. Napoleon's strategy had been to cross the border into what is now Belgium and was then part of the United Kingdom of the Netherlands without alerting the coalition and drive a wedge between their forces and subsequently to defeat the Prussians before turning on the Anglo-allied army. Although the coalition commanders did have an overview of French pre-war movements, Napoleon's strategy was initially very successful. Wellington's instructions at the start of the campaign were to defend Brussels from the French, but he did not know what route Napoleon might take and had received reports of a flanking maneuver through Mons, to the southwest. He first heard of the outbreak of hostilities at around 1500 on the 15th June from the Prince of Orange, and further confirmation of the French engaging the Prussian I Corps outposts under Lieutenant General Graf von Zieten at 4:30 at Rouen arrived within the next 3 hours. It was 1800 that Wellington drafted initial orders to concentrate his army. However, he was still uncertain precisely where to concentrate his army, and it was not until he heard that the front near Mons was clear, around midnight, that he ordered his army to move towards the Prussians. This 9-hour delay meant it was too late for him to move his army and sufficient strength to eventually provide Field Marshal Gebhard von Blois-One-Quarter with the support he needed on June 16 at the Battle of Ligny. Wellington did not order his entire army to Quatre Bras on June 16 either, still suspecting a flanking maneuver through Mons. The headquarters of William, Prince of Orange, however decided to ignore Wellington's order to assemble Dutch forces in and around Nivelles and instead took the initiative to defend Quatre Bras, where they received substantial aid from the Brunswickers and Nassauers. Napoleon's original plan for June 16 was based on the assumption that the coalition forces, who had been caught napping, would not attempt a risky forward concentration. He intended therefore to push an advanced guard as far as Gembloux, for the purpose of feeling for and warding off Blois-One-Quarter. To assist this operation the reserve would move at first to Fleurus to reinforce Grouchy, should he need assistance in driving back Blois-One-Quarter's troops. But, once in possession of Sombre, Napoleon would swing the reserve westwards and join Ney, who, it was supposed, would have in the meantime mastered Quatre Bras. In pursuance of this object Ney, to whom 3 cavalry corps was now attached, was to mass at Quatre Bras and push an advanced guard 10 kilometers northward of that place, with a connecting division at Mabas to link him with Grouchy. The centre and left wing together would then make a night march toward Brussels. The coalition forces would thus be irremediably sundered, and all that remained would be to destroy them in detail. Napoleon now awaited further information from his wing commanders at Charleroi, where he massed the Sixth Corps, to save it, if possible, from a harassing counter-march, as it appeared likely that it would only be wanted for the march to Brussels. On June 15 as the Prussian I Corps withdrew towards Ligny, there was a danger for the coalition forces that Ney would be able to advance through Quatre Bras and take his objectives with little or no coalition opposition. At the Dutch headquarters at Genappe from Quatre Bras, Major General John Victor de Constant-Rebecque, Chief of Staff to the Prince of Orange, realizing the danger ordered Lieutenant General Hendrik George de Poponja-Sidelnitsky, the commander of the 2nd Dutch Division, to dispatch his 2nd Brigade to occupy Quatre Bras. The brigade, consisting of 2 regiments from Nassau, arrived at about 1400 on June 15. Prince Bernhard deployed before the 1st French Scouts, Lancers of the Guard Light Cavalry Division, as they approached Quatre Bras. The Lancers were interdicted at Frissons, after which the Nassauers retreated to the Bois de Bouchoux, a thick patch of forest near Quatre Bras. General Lefebvre Desnoyers requested infantry support, but as night was approaching, and his infantry was strung out along Brussels-Charleroi road, Ney declined the request, deciding to camp for the night and approach Quatre Bras in force the following day. Early on the evening of June 15, instead of obeying Wellington's order to concentrate the I Corps at Nivelles, Ribbeck ordered 1st Brigade of the 2nd Dutch Division to reinforce Prince Bernhard's 2nd Brigade. Ney spent the morning of June 16 massing his Iron II Corps, and in reconnoitering the enemy at Quatre Bras, who, as he was informed, had been reinforced. But up till noon he took no serious step to capture the crossroads, which then lay at his mercy. Grouchy meantime reported from Fleurus that Prussians were coming up from Namur, but Napoleon does not appear to have attached much importance to this report. He was still at Charleroi when, between 0900 and 1000, further news reached him from the left that considerable hostile forces were visible at Quatre Bras. He at once wrote to Ney saying that these could only be some of Wellington's troops, and that Ney was to concentrate his force and crush what was in front of him, adding that he was to send all reports to Fleurus. Then, keeping Labow provisionally at Charleroi, Napoleon hastened to Fleurus, arriving about 1100. Combatants. At the beginning of the battle the left wing of the Armée du Nord, with 18,000 men under Marshal Michel Ney, faced 8,000 infantry and 16 guns, under the command of William, Prince of Orange. The Dutch were thinly deployed south of the crossroads of Quatre Bras. Fresh Allied troops started to arrive 2 hours later, along with Wellington, who took over command of the Allied forces. As the day wore on, fresh Dutch, British and Brunswickers arrived faster than fresh French troops. Fighting started late in the afternoon on June 15, when the Elbe Squadron, a small Polish Lancer unit consisting of only 109 men and officers, tried to attack the Allied forces from the direction of Frasnes. These forces consisted of the 2/2nd Nassau Regiment and Bieleveld's horse artillery. The Dutch and Nassau commanders had taken precaution however, and the Lancers were greeted by canister and volley fire, losing some men and horses before retiring to Frasnes. Patrols were sent out and the positions were kept until the next morning. From 5 a.m. on June 16, there were continuous skirmishes between Allied and French forces, in which neither side managed to get an advantage. Some Prussian hussars, cut off from their main body, skirmished with the Red Lancers, but they disengaged after Bieleveld's artillery once again drove the Lancers back. 2 companies of Nassau infantry advanced towards Frasnes, but this time the French pushed them back. Sometime after 6 a.m., after the Prince of Orange arrived, the skirmishes stopped. The real battle began with the French attack around 14 o'clock hours. Ney massed a battery of 22 guns and started bombarding the coalition positions. Swarms of skirmishers preceded the French columns as they attacked. The Dutch picket line of the 2nd Division greeted them with musket volleys, but it was outnumbered and those east of the Brussels Highway were at once forced back by the mass of men moved against them. The Nassauers of 2nd Brigade retreated to Grand-Pierre-Pont Farm and Dutch troops of the 1st Brigade to Gemion-Court, but the Allies managed, however, to hold the wood. Facing 3 infantry divisions and a cavalry brigade, the situation became desperate for the 2nd Division. At around 1500 the 5th British Infantry Division and the 3rd Dutch Light Cavalry Brigade arrived. The Duke of Wellington came back from his meeting with Blancquartier and took command. He deployed Picton's division on the Allied left flank where it stopped the French advance to the east of the road. The fresh French 6th Division arrived on the scene. A fierce fight now broke out all along the line. Picton, showing a dauntless front, maintained his position, while the French 6th Division was sent against Grand-Pierre-Pont. The Nassauers were forced to abandon the farm and were driven into the Beaussy Wood. There they fought from tree to tree, slowing the French advance. At Gemion-Court the Dutch troops were a thorn in the side of the French. The defending battalion of Gemion-Nordfarm, the 5th National Militia, lost 62% of its original strength that day. It was driven out by the 4th Light and 100th Line regiments, but regrouped north of the farm when the Dutchmen saw the 28th British Foot come to their aid. But this regiment thought the farmhouse was lost and retreated, while the 5th Militia, thinking they were going to get reinforced, charged the farmhouse again and drove the French regiments from the surroundings of the farm, but were unable to take the farm itself. The 5th managed to take up positions south of the farm, where their prince joined them. With artillery support, they repulsed the 6th Chasseurs or Cheval and a Lancer regiment. The Dutch lost and retook the farm another time, but eventually lost it. By 1500, the French formed a line between Pierre Point through Gemio and Court to Pyrmont. At 1530 the Dutch 3rd Light Cavalry Brigade, led by the Prince of Orange, charged the French line. Although they were met by French cavalry and were thrown back, this gave the battered Dutch infantry time to regroup. When the Dutch cavalry brigade disengaged and retired to friendly lines, they were shot at by Scottish infantry because their uniforms looked like the French uniforms of the chasseurs à cheval. The Brunswick Corps, under the Duke of Brunswick, now reached the field, but their commander received a mortal wound while leading a charge and the attack failed. At 1650 Ney received Napoleon's order to attack vigorously. He sent an order to his two corps to attack with more force. On Ney's left, Prince Quatre Bras drove the Allies out of the Bossy Wood. French mixed forces advanced almost all the way to the crossroads. Regiments of the British 9th Brigade Euro 42nd, 44th and 92nd Euro held up against the infantry. French of the 2nd Brigade of the 2nd Cavalry Division counter-attacked and severely mauled the 42nd and 44th before they were driven off. At 17 o'clock the timely arrival of the British 3rd Division, coming in from Nivelles, tipped the numerical balance back in favour of the Allies. At 1:15 the hour Ney heard that the French I Corps, without his direct order or knowledge, had moved eastwards to assist in the Battle of Ligny. 15 minutes later at 17:30 he received an unclear order from Napoleon to seize Quatre Bras and then turn eastwards to crush Blouin-Courtechere, who was caught at Ligny. Due to the arrival of Allied reinforcements, Ney realized that he could capture and hold Quatre Bras only with the support of the I Corps, and he sent imperative orders to Dillon to return at once. To keep the pressure on Wellington, immediately after sending for Dillon, Ney ordered Kellerman to lead his one available cuirassier brigade and break through Wellington's line. Kellerman's cuirassiers caught the British 5th Brigade Euro 33rd, 69th and the 73rd Euro in line formation. The 69th were badly mauled, losing their king's colour. The 33rd and the 73rd were saved from a similar fate by running for the safety of Bossy Wood, where they rallied quickly. The cuirassiers reached a crossroads but were driven back by close-range artillery and musket fire. The arrival of the British 1st Infantry Division gave Wellington sufficient strength to counter-attack, and Quatre Bras, whose skirmishers were now west of Quatre Bras, was forced to retreat and give up possession of Bossy Wood to the British Guards. When the Guards and other Allied units emerged from the wood, they were met with heavy fire from French infantry and an attack by 6th Lancer Regiment of the 2nd Cavalry Division. The Guards were caught in line and forced to flee back into the wood. This cavalry attack and taking the Bossy Wood caused high casualties among the British Guards. There was some further skirmishing between Allied light companies and the French voltigeurs and cavalry screen, but the battle was over. By 2100, when the fighting stopped, the French had been forced to give up all of their territorial gains. Aftermath. The battle cost Ney 4,000 men to Wellington's 4,800. Although the Allies had won the field, the French prevented them from coming to the aid of the Prussians at the Battle of Ligny. Wellington's Anglo-allied army, upon learning of the Prussian defeat, was forced to retreat north along the Brussels road further away from the Prussians, who retreated northeast towards Wever. There has been much debate about what would have happened if Dillon's I Corps had engaged at either Ligny or Quatre Bras. As he did not, Napoleon chose to follow Wellington with the bulk of his forces and 2 days later met him at Waterloo. See also, Order of Battle of the Battle of Quatre Bras. Notes. References: Anonymous, 100 Days Campaign 1815 and the combats at Thuin and Gilly, Storming of Charleroi Bridgine, the Battle of Quatre Bras, Napoleon, His Army and Enemies, retrieved May 5, 2015. This website considers that English-language articles overemphasize the British contribution to the campaign and emphasizes other nations' contributions. Beck, Archibald Frank, Waterloo Campaign, in Chisholm, Hugh. Encyclopædia Britannica 28, Cambridge University Press, pages 371 to 381. Forbes, Archibald, The Inner History of the Waterloo Campaign, Camps, Quarters, and Casual Places, London, Macmillan and Company, pages 237, Hofschriftparagrapher, Peter, 1815, The Waterloo Campaign. The German Victory II, London, Greenhill Books, ISBN 978-1-85367-368-9, Hofschriftparagrapher, Peter, Waterloo 1815, Quatre Bras and Ligny, London, Leo Cooper, ISBN 978-1-84415-168-4, Niederost, Eric, Napoleonic Wars, Battle of Quatre Bras, HistoryNet, pages 2, Witt, Pierre de, The Last Anglo-Netherlands-German Reinforcements and the Anglo-Netherlands-German Advance, The Campaign of 1815, A Study, Emmen, The Netherlands, pages 3. Further reading, Anonymous. The Battle of Quatre Bras, Fletcher, Ian. A desperate business, unregistered trademark. Wellington, The British Army in the Waterloo Campaign. Spellmount Publishers, Libert, Alphonse. The Battle of Quatre Bras, Melich, Owen. Contribution of the Netherlands Mobile Army during the 1815 campaign gives full account of the Dutch troops that fought at Quatre Bras, based on many unknown primary sources. Robinson, Mike. The Battle of Quatre Bras. The History Press 2009. New topographical mapping and personal accounts, digitized diary of Chief of Staff Ney Velt, 1. External links.